Today, we've got the Armalite AR-180. Chambered in 5.56. We've got a couple videos out shooting it and test firing it. But this thing is amazing. It's really cool. Blast from the past. It is extremely similar to an AR-15 if you're familiar with the design. However, what had happened, Armalite created the AR-15, AR-10. They sold that to Colt. So they sold the right to produce those, sold it to Colt. They were fighting with Winchester, so they're competing with Winchester back in the day to get the military contract. They couldn't compete, so they sold it to Colt. Colt ended up getting the contract with the military, which Armalite said, whoops. So they came out with the AR-180, a cheap stamped rifle with some variations on that AR-15 design. AR-15, AR-10. This one's chambered in 5.56. You can also shoot .223. But the interesting thing is some of the enhancements or improvements. So we've got a standard 20mm 2 3/4 power scope. That's a quick detach. This thing is wild. Let me show. Well, first we will show you our chamber's clear. Next, how we take this thing apart, you'll find there's a little notch at the front, or a little toggle switch here. What happens is this little pin in the rear is spring loaded. If I pull to the rear and lift up, I can remove it. You'll see it's got like a little wedge shape here. And then we've got a triangle, a little wedge here. So what happens is you take this pin at the back, push it against your rear sight, and then it falls into place. The front little toggle here is going to lock it in place so it can't move forward or rear. So great little gun. Our stock folds over to the side and will collapse upon that little punch or that little protrusion, and it'll fire from here. Whereas a lot of your standard AR-15s with their buffer tube, if you put on the adapter and fold it over, you're not able to fire. I guess you could fire, but you cannot or should not fire it, as your bolt will come out the rear. So that's easier to take this out. This one, all original from the 70s. It hasn't been fired much, and that's why a lot of it's still pretty stiff. There's a little bit of play in our upper receiver as it's all stamped and we're held on by one pin with a little hook on the rear. But what we'll do is show you how to field strip it real quick. We're going to take off our optic, real easy. And then, since our bolt's to the rear, we're going to want to drop that and take some of that spring tension off. So we'll take out our magazine. This does not have a bolt release like you'd find on your AR-15s. Don't have a bolt release, but removing your mag and dropping your bolt accomplishes that. So from here, how we're going to take it apart, we're going to push this pin all the way through. It's a little hard. You can also put the gun on its butt stock and you can push it to the rear when you do it, because you'll see it wants to push forward. When we do that and pull to the rear, we can lift up and we can pull our upper off. You'll see our guide rod is attached to this piece with this hook on the rear. That's going to hook the rear of the upper receiver in to our lower receiver. To remove our bolt, I'll flip this around for you. You'll see there's a notch at the rear. If we pull our bolt all the way back to that point, we'll be able to lift the handle out and slide our bolt all the way to the rear. Our bolt, we can push out this pin here, kind of our firing pin, retaining pin. That'll slide out this side. We can tip our bolt back, get our firing pin out, and pull our bolt and cam out of our bolt carrier. I wouldn't recommend taking all this apart in here unless you've got a lot of buildup and gunk, but for a typical field strip and cleaning, this is all you need to do. That's our AR-180. Some of the cool little emblems and information are up here. AR-180, Armalite 5.56, Sterling, England. Pretty cool. Reassembly is going to go essentially the same way. What we're going to want to do is start with our bolt carrier, and with the two little holes here, we're going to want to keep those pointing up. So we're going to drop them into our upper receiver. We'll then want to slide it back so we align that hole with the notch. Take our charging handle, and we're going to insert it and just slide that all the way forward into battery. Then we'll take our guide rod and recoil springs. We're just going to push those in. You'll see how they come all the way up. Look pretty good. When we go to put this back on, you want to be mindful of our hammer on our trigger group there, and we're going to bring our hook in the back of our receiver here, and then we're going to make sure we just push it back far enough to get over that hammer, and it'll fall into place. I'm holding pressure so that it stays aligned with our hole here for our pin, and we're going to insert our takedown pin, and it pushes right through. Then we can function test it. Pull our bolts to the rear, safety off, pull the trigger. Function test complete. We were able to successfully reassemble our AR-180. Our scope, we're going to push to the rear, let it come forward, and drop our toggle switch. Insert our magazine, and we have a complete AR-180. For aesthetic purposes, we can close our folding, and there's our gun. Thanks for watching. Come out and visit us here at Family Shooting Center. If you need a lesson, there's $60 an hour. We'll be happy to set one up for you. Do it this way. Safety selector.